Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 330, Fight for the Meteorite. The episode begins with Ash and the gang on their way to the bottom of Mount Chimney, where the cable cart station was located, so that they could go up to Lava Ridge Town using the cable cart. Ash was rushing onwards ahead of his other friends, since he really wanted to get to the cable cart as soon as possible, so he could get to Lava Ridge as soon as possible, to get his 4th fucking gym badge as soon as possible. Brock, May, and Max were annoyed with Ash's goal to get to the cable cart in record time, because they were exhausted as fuck trying to keep up with him, because they didn't have the same drive to get there as he did, since they weren't competing in a gym battle. May and Max yell for Ash to slow down, and Brock does as well, but he tiredly remarks that Ash was always excited to get to a gym. Eventually, they all make it to the station that had the cable cart, and Ash takes a seat on it immediately, followed by May, Max, and Brock, who all come in, breathing heavily, exhausted, warning Ash that he better not run off like that ever again, to the point where he was leaving his friends behind, but Ash just embarrassingly laughs, excited to get to the gym, not thinking about his friends right now. Although he does reassure them that the running would be worth it, since now they had an easy way up Mount Chimney. As for Team Rocket, they had also just arrived at the cable cart station and were hurriedly running onto the cable car, disguised as tour guides. It looked like they weren't going to make it before the cable car set off, so they yelled for the car to wait, hoping that it would somehow wait for them. And this got Ash and the gang's attention, as they saw Jesse, James, as well as Meowth, who was disguised as an old dude, managed to get onto the cable car right as it set off, and they sat at the back of the cable car, away from Ash and the gang, as it started to set off, and Ash looked out the window, admiring the forest below, as Brock, May, and Max relaxed, finally getting to catch their breath after the running, although they enjoyed the view as well, admitting it was pretty cool. Meanwhile, at the top of Mount Chimney, a researcher known as Professor Cosmo was doing some exploring using a device that was supposed to locate something that he was looking for, which happened to be a rock, but he couldn't find anything, even with the device. So he simply continued looking, admiring the area, and trying to pass the time that was going by very slow, since he was so bored not finding anything, by making a joke, although since no one was around him, only he laughed at his own joke. Not like anyone else would have laughed at it anyways, it was just a rock pun. Anyways, back on the cable car, Max, May, and Brock had recovered from their exhaustion, and were now taking in the view fully with Ash, and they loved the view as well. Max was terrified of heights, so May expected that he wouldn't enjoy the view, but the view was so good that even Max was enjoying himself, knowing that he was safe in the cable car. Meanwhile, Team Rocket, in the back of the cable car, plotted how they were going to steal Pikachu, and they were pleased when they eventually came up with an idea, which was related to their cable car employee disguises, as they interrupted Ash and the gang as they were talking, and introduced themselves as tourist guides. And they began to explain about Mount Chimney, although Max replied to them, stating that Ash and the gang didn't hire tour guides, but Meowth, in his old man disguise, admitted that they weren't hired, they were just being tour guides for fun. So Max and May took the opportunity to ask some questions about Mount Chimney, which Team Rocket tried their best to answer, but they were just guessing on most of their answers, since they didn't actually know jack shit about Mount Chimney. Brock figured this out when Meowth stated a fact about Mount Chimney, and Brock corrected him, surprised that he knew more than a tour guide, which made Meowth nervous that their true identities may be unveiled. But just then, Ash and the gang and Team Rocket were distracted by a large red helicopter going by the cable car extremely fast. Jesse, trying to prove that they were tour guides, claimed that this plane always went by Mount Chimney and shit, but Max didn't believe her, so she nervously changed the subject, just explaining different shit about Mount Chimney, hoping that Ash and the gang would completely forget about the red helicopter. Back down on Mount Chimney, Professor Cosmo was still exploring when his device actually managed to find something, so he ran along the mountain past the main volcano, and soon he arrived at the meteorite that he was looking for, embedded into the ground. Right as he goes down and retrieves the meteorite from the ground, though, the large red helicopter lands behind him on an incline on the mountain. The helicopter had his attention before it even fully landed, though, as he was curious as to what a helicopter would be doing on the mountain, when suddenly the landed helicopter opened up, and out of the front hatch, none other than grunts from Team Magma came rushing out, along with the grunt leader, Tabitha, last, and he immediately orders the Team Magma grunts to retrieve the meteor that Professor Cosmo had just found. The grunts oblige as they jump off the incline towards Cosmo, and they immediately surround Cosmo, who was now really confused and asked what they wanted from him, leading Tabitha to simply demand the meteorite from Professor Cosmo, introducing him and his teammates as Team Magma, and declaring that they really needed that meteorite. Though since Cosmo had spent so long looking for this meteorite, he refused to hand it over. Meanwhile, back on the cable car, Jessie was relieved that the helicopter was now gone, as she continued to keep Ash and the gang distracted by explaining Mount Chimney as best she could, still winging the answers to any questions that she was given as she didn't know the answer, just trying to describe the mountain itself physically. But then, Jessie was annoyed as another helicopter flew by at an immensely fast pace and went towards the mountain. Jessie simply lies that it was yet another planned helicopter meant to go to the top of the mountain, but Ash and the gang were immensely confused by this, wondering why, if helicopters were going to the top of the mountain, why people couldn't ride them to the top instead of the cable car. Even Jessie had to admit that this was odd, as she wondered why the fuck 2 helicopters had just arrived at the top of the mountain. This second helicopter was colored blue, signifying it belonged to none other than Team Aqua. Anyways, back on Mount Chimney itself, Tabitha was trying to convince Professor Cosmo to give him the goddamn meteorite, claiming that the meteorite the researcher had was of way more importance to Team Magma, and demanded that Professor Cosmo hand it over, or otherwise, Team Magma would just take it by force if they had to. Cosmo still fucking refused, but just then, the blue helicopter, owned by Team Aqua, arrived on the mountain, and Tabitha immediately recognized it as the same Team Aqua squad from the episode with that kid's secret base came out, including the Team Aqua admin Shelly, who gives orders to all the Team Aqua grunts, telling half of them to locate the meteorite, not knowing where it was yet, and ordered the other half of the grunts to go into the cable car control room and disable it to prevent anyone else from getting up on the mountain. So the half that had to go do that nodded and rushed off to the cable car station and met up with the two operators. Well, most of the half of the Team Aqua grunts stayed outside to guard the station, but two went inside, with one of them sending out their Crawdont and having it use Bubble Beam on the two operators to knock them down, while the other grunt turned off the power switch of the cable car, making Ash and the gang confused as the cable car came to a sudden stop. Of course, making Team Rocket confused as well. Although, even though they were confused, Brock thought that they had to know, and since he saw that Max and May were worried, he decided to try and comfort May and Max by getting Team Rocket, who he believed to be the tour guides, to explain that there probably was nothing that bad going on, and asked them what was even going on anyways, and why the cable car had stopped. However, Jesse, James, and Meowth obviously didn't know what to say because they had no clue why it stopped, and while they were trying to think of what to say, Brock got immensely annoyed and impatient. So he tries to see what the problem is himself by looking out the window of the cable car, only to see that the cable car had made it halfway up the mountain. Even though Brock was pissed off at the quote-unquote tour guides, he decided to still ask them if they had a phone that he could use to call for help, but obviously Team Rocket didn't. Luckily, Brock manages to spot an emergency phone on the cable car wall, and he picks it up, but unfortunately, when he calls the cable car station for help, nobody answers, since all of the operators had been tied up by the Team Aqua grunts. Brock tells the others that no one was answering, and this makes them all worry, realizing they were trapped, but Jesse goes particularly insane with fear and begins to grab the phone from Brock, yanking it from him forcefully, and screams for help into the phone, although obviously no one answers, so she begins to punch the phone in anger, and after a few hits, the phone explodes, leaving her moaning in pain and covered in smoke. This incident, combined with all the other suspicious things Team Rocket had done, made Ash and the gang rightfully suspicious about these so-called cable car workers, and they ask who they really are. Jesse and James knew the jig was up, so they begin to say their motto, although Meowth interrupted the motto, stating how disappointed he was in Jesse and James for revealing themselves this early, although knowing that he had just admitted Jesse and James' true identity by saying this, he decides to join them in their motto, and Team Rocket take off their disguises, revealing themselves. Meanwhile, while Shelly and the other half of the Team Aqua grunts were going to find the meteorite, they eventually stumbled upon Team Magma and Professor Cosmo. And Tabitha immediately taunts Shelly, stating that her and her team were late, but Shelly rebuttals that they were perfectly on time, since the researcher that had the meteorite hadn't given it to them yet, making fun of Tabitha for this. Shelly then declares that she wouldn't allow Team Magma to get a hold of the meteor, knowing that they would use it to erupt the volcano on Mount Chimney. Hearing this, Cosmo knew that he had to get out of there and not let the meteorite fall into Team Magma's hands, but before he could escape, he then noticed the Team Magma grunts sent out 2 Golbats and 3 Mightienas, while the Team Aqua grunts sent out 2 Crawdons and 2 Walreins. With the two opposing teams about to battle, this gave Cosmo the opportunity he needed to escape. However, both Team Magma and Team Aqua noticed him escaping, so Tabitha ordered a few Team Magma grunts to go after him, and Shelly ordered a few Team Aqua grunts to go after him as well, as the Team Aqua grunts and Team Magma grunts chased Cosmo down Mount Chimney. Shelly and Tabitha then taunt each other as they prepare for battle. Meanwhile, back on the cable car, Team Rocket finished off their motto, although they soon stopped when they realized that Ash and the gang weren't paying attention whatsoever, and were instead looking for a way to get off the cable cart. Team Rocket scolded Ash and the gang for not listening, but Ash just told them to shut the fuck up. And Brock pointed out that escaping the cable car was way more important than Team Rocket's bullshit and their battling that they usually did. Also adding that if they were to have a battle, then it would cause the cart to likely fall off of the rail, since there was no power. Team Rocket admits that Brock had a point, and they agree to not fight, as Ash looks around for a way off the cable car, finding a grappling hook from the cable car's storage cupboard on the cable car floor, and there was a whole bunch of rope connected to the grapple. With the rope and grappling hook in his hand, Ash opens up the roof hatch of the cable car and goes out to the top on the roof, followed by everyone else. Due to how high up they all were, May was holding the metal beam connecting the cable car to the rope to try and prevent herself from falling off, and Max quickly grabbed on to this beam as well for the same reason. And May and Max both pleaded Ash to go back inside along with the rest of them, because they were too fucking scared, but Ash refused, stating that he didn't hook the rope up to the metal beam for no reason, as he then tossed the grappling hook, and the grappling hook hit a large pillar that was by the cable car. So with the rope tied to the beam by the cable car and the grappling hook attached to the pillar, Ash could essentially try and use the rope to get across to the pillar, with the rope essentially functioning like a bridge. Before he did, though, Ash made sure the rope was secure as he tugged on it, and he told Brock to make sure that the rope was successfully tied to the beam still, and Brock checked this and confirmed that it was. So Ash began to crawl across the rope, gripping onto it. While making his way to the pillar, Ash called back to his friends and told them to cross the rope when he made it. But May states that she'd rather wait for a rescue, with Brock agreeing, advising that Ash should go from the pillar to the operation office of the cable car so that he could get it working again. As for Team Rocket, Ash and the gang hadn't invited them to come out onto the roof with them, because they obviously didn't give a fuck what happened to them. But when Jesse, James, and Meowth heard Ash escaping, they poked their heads out of the cable car to see this. And while Meowth was impressed by Ash's courage to crawl across the rope like that, and Jessie got angry that they weren't told that everyone was making their escape, as she immediately ran towards the rope to try and escape as well. So she grabbed onto it, while Ash was still crawling on it, which caused the rope to wobble. Ash held on tight, trying to stay on, but as for Jessie, she wasn't able to hold on, as she was crawling across the rope too fast, and had fallen off of it, now just hanging onto it by grabbing it with her hand. So she was obviously insane with fear, screaming out, and demanding that James and Meowth come to help her. James and Meowth sighed in annoyance, not wanting to have to save Jessie and put their lives at risk, but they do anyways. But as soon as the two of them jump onto the rope, they also lose their balance while crawling, and fall off, now in the same position as Jessie, having to be rescued, dangling from the rope by one arm each, leading Jessie to scream at them for not being help at all, since they were just in the same predicament as her now. With all the weight on the rope concentrated in one spot, combined with the fact that Team Rocket was panicking and wiggling and shit, the rope was beginning to snap, not being able to handle all this. So Brock advised them to stop wiggling, but Team Rocket didn't stop, unable to, because they were so terrified, and the rope broke. And as a result, the two pieces of rope went different directions, with Ash being swung towards the pillar, and Team Rocket being swung back onto the cable car with Brock, May, and Max. Well, not really on the cable car. Their rope had swung by the cable car, but they were still hanging from the rope, so they were terrified as fuck still. As for Ash, happy that he was at least on the pillar, he called to his friends, saying that he would find help and come back to save his friends and Team Rocket, as he then slides down the pillar, leading Brock, May, and Max to wish Ash good luck. Meanwhile, back during the battle between Tabitha and Shelly, Shelly's Crawdon attacked Tabitha's Mightyena with a bubble beam, although the bubble beam missed, since Mightyena hid behind a rock, jumping behind it, allowing Mightyena to attack Crawdon with a hyper beam, jumping on top of the rock to do so, which takes out not just Shelly's Crawdon, but all the Crawdons that Team Aqua had unleashed. Then, the Team Magma Grunt's Golbats use two air cutters, defeating both of Team Aqua's Walreins. Team Aqua Grunt then tells Shelly that they were losing the battle against Team Magma, so they might as well just give up and focus on actually finding the meteor, because that was more important, since they wanted the meteor from Professor Cosmo, so that Team Magma couldn't get a hold of it. And Shelly agreed with this, as the Grunts and Shelly recalled their Pokemon in their Pokeballs, and they rushed off towards where the other Team Aqua Grunts went to go after the researcher, Professor Cosmo. With Team Aqua gone, the Team Magma admin, Tabitha, celebrates this and orders his grunts to head to the summit of Mount Chimney so that they could test some special equipment that involved a laser. 3 Team Magma grunts do just as they were ordered, bringing a large object that was the equipment that was supposed to be tested to the summit of Mount Chimney, and it digs into the ground after it was placed there, and then the laser that Tabitha was talking about pops out of the device and points into the lava as the grunts work on setting it up. Meanwhile, as for Ash, he had made it off of the pillar and was able to go from the pillar to the actual Mount Chimney, and he decided that climbing up Mount Chimney would be the best case scenario for him, since if there was no answer at the bottom, then something must have happened to the operators of the cable car at the bottom. So he was like, oh, I hope those people that were in the helicopter, right? Well, maybe they can help me if I go to the top, because he must not have recognized Team Magma and Team Aqua and their signature helicopters. But anyways, as he was going up the hill looking for their help, Professor Cosmo was still running down the hill trying to escape Team Magma and Team Aqua, and because one was running down, one was running up, Ash and Cosmo fell over as they collided. And as a result, both Ash and Cosmo were knocked to the ground, leading Cosmo to apologize, stating that he was running from a team that called themselves Team Magma. Ash hears this, obviously recognizing the name Team Magma, but before he could say anything, he and Cosmo heard Team Magma grunts rushing by, with 2 Team Aqua grunts also following. So, Ash and Cosmo hide behind a rock as the grunts pass, and Ash explains who Team Magma and Team Aqua were to Cosmo, recognizing them. Although Ash admitted that, despite his previous run-ins with Team Magma and Team Aqua, he didn't know what their end goals were, and certainly didn't know what they wanted on Mount Chimney. Meanwhile, back in the cable car, May and Max were immensely worried about Ash and if he would be able to save them, but then Max's stomach growled, leading May to comment that he obviously wasn't that worried, otherwise he would be so worried that his stomach wouldn't even growl. Max just laughs though, as he then hears May's stomach growl as well, and May admits that she was hungry too, and she asks if anyone had any food. Luckily, Brock says he has some sandwiches in his backpack, and he takes them out, and they all got ready to take a bite of one, when suddenly they were interrupted when they heard Team Rocket's stomachs growling, and turned to see Team Rocket looking at them with immensely hungry-looking faces. Max suggested to May and Brock that they should offer Team Rocket food, despite them being the enemy, because they didn't want to be super rude like Team Rocket usually was. Basically, they wanted to prove that they weren't as bad as Team Rocket. So, Max officially permits Team Rocket to eat some other sandwiches as Brock pulled them out of his backpack, and Jesse and James happily rushed to eat them, although Meowth stayed back, folding his arms matter-of-factly as he refused to eat a sandwich, stating Team Rocket would never accept a gift or sympathy from Ash and the gang, and expected that Jesse and James would feel the same, although he got really annoyed when he saw that Jesse and James were already chowing down on sandwiches and questioned if they had any pride whatsoever. Team Rocket just replied that they had no pride at all, so Meowth, although reluctant, decides that if his team members had already gave in, he might as well give in as well, and he eats. So he eats, putting aside his differences with Ash and the gang, or rather just the gang, because Ash wasn't there, for a brief amount of time while they enjoyed sandwiches. Meanwhile, the Team Aqua Grunts had reported back to Shelly to inform her that they were still searching for the meteor and couldn't find it, leading Shelly to bitterly report back to her boss because she wasn't the full leader of the team. She was just like the second-in-command type of person, that Team Aqua was still looking for the meteor. She was basically just relaying the same message. Meanwhile, Professor Cosmo introduced himself formally to Ash and showed him the meteor, explaining that he was researching asteroids and meteorites, as well as other types of rocks from outer space, although those were the main two. And Professor Cosmo then adds that this meteorite was a part of a large asteroid that fell from space, and he wanted to do research on it, since some people, including himself, believe that certain meteors may hold special powers of some kind. Upon hearing this, Ash asked if this meteorite having any special powers or properties was the reason why Team Magma and Team Aqua wanted it, but Cosmo doubted that this was the case, since it would take a lot of analyzation and research to find out if the meteorite had special powers or properties, and that it was basically impossible for most people who weren't super advanced scientists or researchers like him to tell if the meteorite had any special powers, even with research. So basically, he thought that there was no way Team Aqua or Team Magma could have known of any special abilities of the meteorite, and admitted that it was unlikely that this meteorite had any special abilities at all, since he had encountered many meteorites that had no special abilities. Professor Cosmo then asked Ash if he had any theories as to why Team Aqua or Team Magma would want it, leading Ash to simply state that Team Magma likely wanted to use it for no good, just like Team Aqua probably. Ash then wanted to examine the meteorite, so he asked to hold it, and Cosmo obliged, giving it to him. As Ash inspected it, he was surprised to feel how heavy the meteorite was, and questioned Professor Cosmo on if he knew why, although Professor Cosmo just stated that it was one of the many mysteries of space that mankind still didn't know. Professor Cosmo then admitted that the mysteries of space were what drove him to study asteroids in the first place, since they were one of the only items that they could touch that came from outer space. Ash was curious to know if Professor Cosmo knew how the asteroid got down to Mount Chimney in the first place, leading Professor Cosmo to state how asteroids worked, stating that they go towards Earth and then burn out and become smaller, turning into meteorites, and once they become smaller when they hit Earth's atmosphere and burn up, they break apart and then crash onto and this one specifically crashed on Mount Chimney. Ash was amazed learning about meteorites and gave it back to Professor Cosmo, as Professor Cosmo promised to not let it fall into Team Magma's hands. Just as Professor Cosmo said this, though, a Golbat then arrived, flying down and grabbing the meteorite, and flies up to a Team Magma grunt that Tabitha had put in charge of the grunts that were supposed to go after Professor Cosmo, and this grunt thanks his Golbat for delivering the meteorite. And then, this Team Magma grunt orders his group to rendezvous with Tabitha at the mountain summit, and they do so, ignoring Ash and Professor Cosmo entirely. Although Ash and Professor Cosmo give chase, knowing that they had to get the meteorite back. Meanwhile, back at the summit of Mount Chimney, a Team Magma grunt was typing some things in on a computer connected to the laser to set it up. As Tabitha watches this, he is approached by another Team Magma grunt who had just received word from the Team Magma grunts that had just stolen the meteorite, that they had done so, and that they were currently on their way back to the summit. Tabitha was pleased by this, laughing, as he orders the rest of the grunts to continue preparing the laser, as the grunts oblige and point the laser at the center of Mount Chimney's volcano. Specifically the center of the volcano, with the lava, as Tabitha then declared that when they use the laser to make the volcano erupt, it will make Team Magma one step closer to their goal of creating a world of all land. Yeah, that was Team Magma's goal, if you didn't know. Anyways, back in the cable car, the wind started picking up, causing the cable car to start shaking immensely. This causes Max to get very scared that the cable car would fall off the rail, as he holds May for comfort, as May tells him that everything was going to be alright, although May started to get unsure, as the Team Rocket trio started to freak out as well. Although Brock tried to keep everyone's spirits up, telling himself that Ash would return soon, praying that Ash would hurry the fuck up and save them, as everyone hung on to the inside of the cable car for dear life, trying to envision Ash showing up with a team of rescuers. Anyways, back at the summit, Ash and Professor Cosmo were able to trail the Team Magma grunts who had got the meteorite from them, so Ash and Cosmo hid behind a rock as they saw the Team Magma grunts deliver the meteorite to Tabitha, who then placed it inside of the laser machine. Seemingly with the power of the meteorite, a grunt was able to turn the laser machine on, and they fired it at the volcano's lava, making it bubble. Upon seeing this, Professor Cosmo theorized that Team Magma wanted to use the power from the meteorite on the laser to activate the volcano, making all the lava sprout out from it, which would do a whole bunch of damage to the surrounding area. Ash obviously declared that this had to be stopped, and Professor Cosmo agreed. So Ash and Professor Cosmo began to come up with a plan to get the meteorite back, since getting the meteorite back would be the only way to stop the laser, since it was powered up by the meteorite. So Ash came up with the idea to sneak up to the machine from behind and snatch the meteorite from inside of it, although Professor Cosmo, admitting this was a good idea, added that Ash should do this while he would create a distraction so that Team Magma wouldn't notice him. So with that, Ash agreed, and the two of them split up to do their respective parts of the plan. So Ash began sneaking up on the laser as Tabitha was informed by a grunt that he had just intensified the laser, making Tabitha declare that with the laser causing a volcano eruption, they would have more of the Earth under their control, since they controlled the volcano and its energy to do what they wanted with the help of the laser. Anyways, Tabitha was then interrupted with his little spiel as Cosmo then showed up and threw a rock, calling out to the Team Magma grunts to get their attention. The rock just misses Tabitha's head, which pisses him off as he instructs a few of his grunts to go after Cosmo, leaving Cosmo to run away as a few of the grunts gave chase. Even though Tabitha and some of the other grunts were still there were significantly less grunts, so this gave Ash the opportunity to get right up behind the laser where the meteorite was, as he overhears a Team Magma grunt inform Tabitha that the pressure of the laser was building, along with the pressure of the volcano, and noted that his computer was reading a lot of volcanic activity, causing Tabitha to smile, knowing that their plan was going well, and it wouldn't be long until the volcano erupted. Ash then goes to grab the meteor inside the laser, but he realizes that the laser was locked inside, being shut in, so he tried to pry open the laser cannon to get the meteorite, but he couldn't, and realized that that was because the laser machine was clamped closed with an electric lock. So this gave him the idea to have Pikachu use Thunderbolt to overload the electric lock. This works, and Pikachu's Thunderbolt was pretty quiet, so Ash figured that Team Magma weren't alerted by the Thunderbolt, so he went to go grab the meteorite, and did so, and he began using the meteorite to try and destroy the laser machine so that it couldn't be used whatsoever, even though it was already weakened from not having the meteorite to power it. However, unbeknownst to Ash, with the meteorite being removed from the laser machine, this caused an explosion of the computer that was hooked up to the laser machine, just as it signaled that there was something wrong with the laser, signaling to Tabitha and the grunts that the laser had been messed with, and the meteorite had been removed from the laser. Seeing the computer hooked to the laser machine explode, Tabitha looked down to see if the laser machine was okay, and he noticed Ash, recognizing him from their previous encounter in the previous episodes where, Ash had battled Tabitha and all that, and he immediately sends some of his grunts to stop him as he sees Ash trying to destroy the laser machine with the meteorite. However, right as the grunts arrive to Ash and try to jump him, he just has Pikachu use Thunderbolt to electrocute all of the magma grunts, making them back away. And he just continues to smash the laser with the rock. Due to all this, the laser began to go out of control, starting to overheat, and even the remains of the computer that were attached to it still sparked, as the grunt that was monitoring the computer before remarked that the laser machine was about to be fucking completely destroyed and overwhelmed. Meanwhile, back on the cable car, the winds were getting extremely bad now, and it was causing the cable car to practically do flips on the rope, almost falling off numerous times. Anyways, Tabitha, seeing how his grunts had failed, rushed down to deal with Ash himself and put the meteorite back in place. But just as Tabitha arrived, Professor Cosmo arrived by Ash and knocked Tabitha back. Just then, though, Ash realized that he had been bashing the laser machine with the meteorite so hard that it caused the meteorite to break. Although, upon seeing the destroyed parts of the meteorite, Cosmo declared that the destroyed pieces together would only form half of the meteorite, coming to the conclusion that when Team Magma put the meteorite inside of the laser, the impact was so hard when they put it in that it actually split the meteorite in two, and this second half was actually still in the laser machine. It was just deeper in there. Ash then realized that Cosmo was right and declared that the meteorite must have still been in the laser machine. Professor Cosmo tried to reach in, but it was too far down for him to reach the meteorite, so he tried to pry open the laser machine from another side, but he obviously couldn't do this either, so the meteorite would be forever trapped inside the laser machine. So, Professor Cosmo decided to push the entire laser machine into the depths of the volcano, declaring that if he couldn't have the meteorite, then it was better no one did, so it couldn't fall into the wrong hands or be used by Team Magma or Team Aqua. Ash was immensely shocked that Cosmo was willing to let the meteorite be destroyed as it went in the lava, and Tabitha was shocked as well, ordering Cosmo to stop what he was doing, but it was too late, as the laser had already went down the mount chimney and into the lava, destroying both the machine and the meteorite. Tabitha was immensely frustrated at the meteorite being gone, but ordered him and all his grunts to leave the area, since there was nothing left for them to do since the meteorite was gone, so they retreated, taking off in their red Team Magma helicopter, leaving behind Ash and Cosmo, as Cosmo continued to look at the lava, troubled that he had to give up the meteorite. Ash stated that he knew it was hard for Cosmo to destroy the meteorite, but assured Cosmo that he made the right decision, because there was no other way that he could have kept it out of Team Magma's hands. Just then, Shelly and the Team Aqua Grunts had arrived at the very top of Mount Chimney, and the Aqua Grunts asked Shelly if they should capture Cosmo, but Shelly denied this, stating that there was no point to capture Cosmo since he no longer had the meteorite. And she then ordered her and her Team Aqua Grunts to return to their Team Aqua helicopter and set off since they no longer had anything else to do since the meteorite was gone. All of the Team Aqua Grunts were depressed about this, but Shelly wasn't, as she was pleased that at least Team Magma's plans had been foiled as well. It's not like they only took the L, both teams took the L. Before Shelly and the Team Aqua Grunts took off, though, they watched as the Team Magma helicopter flew off into the distance. While inside Team Magma's helicopter, Tabitha was relatively happy, as he declared that even though the plan had failed, they had learned a lot from their failures and now knew the limits of their plan. And Tabitha was also pleased that Team Aqua didn't get the meteorite just because they didn't. So, like Shelly, he was just glad that both teams took the L, as opposed to just one of them. And Tabitha then declared to his grunts, including the one that was right beside him in the main cockpit, that just because this mission had failed didn't mean their overall mission had failed, and they would simply try a new plan. The Team Aqua helicopter then takes off, with Shelly driving it, and multiple grunts beside her, as Shelly actually admired the balls that Cosmo had to send the meteorite into the lava, stating that she actually wished that Team Aqua had a member like that on their team that was as ballsy, and hoped they would meet again, so maybe she could recruit Professor Cosmo. Yeah, I don't think Professor Cosmo would ever join you fucks. Anyways, with both Team Magma and Team Aqua gone, Ash remembered that he had to save his friends as he escorted Professor Cosmo to the operator area, like he should have just gone to from the start, and he activates the cable car again, allowing it to come down to the bottom of the mountain, where Ash, as well as Professor Cosmo, met at Brock, Max, May, and Team Rocket, as Brock, Max, May all thanked Ash and Professor Cosmo for saving them. And the two operators of the cable car operation center thanked Ash and Cosmo as well, as they had untied them. As for Team Rocket, they had went to the edge of a cliff on the end of the mountain by the operations center, and the reason why they were separate was because they wanted to catch Ash and the gang off guard, and now finally take this time to catch Pikachu. But just as they were about to get Pikachu, seeing that Ash, Brock, and Max, and May were distracted by talking to Professor Cosmo, Wobbuffet suddenly pops out of its Pokeball, and due to Wobbuffet's weight, this causes the section of the cliff that Team Rocket was standing on to break off and go falling down the mountain. Ash and the gang turned around and realized that Team Rocket were gone, although they still heard Team Rocket scream as they fell down the mountain, blasting off somewhere down into the forest below the mountain. The episode then ends with Ash and the gang and Cosmo down at the bottom of the mountain, as Cosmo points down a trail known as the Jagged Pass and confirms that this pass led straight to Lava Ridge, knowing from Ash that he needed to get there for his 4th gym badge. Ash and the gang thanked Cosmo for the directions and waved goodbye as they set off, continuing on to Lava Ridge Town, as Cosmo wishes Ash good luck in his gym battle.